Hey there, welcome to day 53 of our Get Your Goals annual challenge. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here. We are focusing on emotional well-being this month. And the last 2 days of the month, I want to run through probably a 7-step process, and we'll cover one step every day to make sure we nail down this year's emotional goals. 1 to 3 areas we want to focus on and make sure we achieve this year with respect to the emotional area of our life, the emotional aspects of our life, and our emotional well-being. Maybe you want, and I'm just brainstorming here, maybe you want to increase your emotional intelligence. Maybe you want to experience more joy and happiness or love in your life. Maybe you want to stop feeling a certain way and that you want to have a goal around that. So I'm just going to quickly share the process that we're going to use this month, and then maybe we'll try it on next month too, and we'll tweak it as we go along, so by the end of this challenge we have the perfect process for handling goals, dealing with goals. I think I call it the EGP, the emotional goals process, and then of course it would change for each month, but we're just going to call it the overall goal process. I'm sharing in a little write-up in Guide 17 of the Get Your Go annual challenge. Get Up and Go challenge. Guide 17 is where I'm doing a write-up every day this month. So I've outlined in more detail the process, but I'm just going to run through the steps, and each day we'll take a step at a time between now and the end of the month, so we make sure we follow the process for each area and aspect of our life. So today is to identify our current emotional state. Where are we at with respect to our emotional well-being? Where do we want to be? Again, that's kind of like the SOAP framework. Where we are, our current story versus where we want to be, creates this gap that we're going to use the rest of our goals process to fill. And the goal process is one where we're going to have a little more detailed areas and steps, because we want to make sure we are creating the measurements to know if we're making progress or not, or to have critical ways to know if we're making progress or not. But the whole goal process, creating goals, is very similar to dealing with difficult or challenging situations. It's all pretty much, anything can be boiled down to a simple 4-step process, right? You know where you are, you know what you want. That creates a gap. Well, what are the options to start filling that gap? Take some actions to fill that gap, and then are you making progress or not? Easy peasy, in my mind, only because I've done it thousands and thousands of times. So our first step is we're going to identify our current state. And our action item today then is going to be to think about our current state, think about our desired state, and select 3 maximum. When I'm looking at my annual goals, the most I pick, because we have so many different areas and aspects of our life, is 3. So if I have 3 for every area and aspect of my life, and I think I do, I might only have 2 for one, but for the most part I pick 3 key things that I want to achieve for the year, and then I break them down. Well, 3 times 9 different life framework areas is 27. So if I'm working on 27 goals, that's more than most people can handle. Some people will just have 1 in each area and aspect of their life, and then we prioritize, of course, those based on which areas we want to work on most. But this month we're focusing on emotional, so we're thinking of our 3 max, 1 to 3 wildly important goals to you with respect to your emotional well-being. I don't know what mine are yet. I left space in my book for them, but I haven't decided what they're going to be. I will look. I did set my goals this year using my process, how I always do, but it doesn't mean for this challenge I won't pick something slightly different or maybe more specific in order to make sure I'm following the rest of the process in terms of really demonstrating how I go about doing this in my life, and then seeing the results I get or that I don't get. Because guess what? I don't always get all of my goals. I've gotten better and better and better at it over the years, but sometimes I set a goal for whatever reason and life happens, life gets in the way. COVID year, I had totally different goals set at the beginning of the year in January than I ended up working toward and creating in 2020, right? The pandemic pretty much flipped everybody's lives upside down, including mine, and it didn't mean I actually had one of my best years ever in 2020 and 2021, but it wasn't because of the goals I set in the beginning of 2020. It was because I responded to the pandemic in ways that worked best for me. So that is our first thing today. And the other thing I wanted to talk about today was I have a topic for each day, but I wanted to overlay this process on it as well. So that'll be our action item. But handling difficult situations in 3 easy steps, or not difficult situations. Difficult situations and difficult emotions are generally the same thing. But how do we handle difficult emotions? Well, when I put it into Chat GPT and asked the artificial intelligence, it basically gave me a really similar process to what we talked about yesterday, how you let emotions flow right through you. A couple things were different, but basically it was like the same process. So I'm like, let's pick my own, and one that I know I've used and works for me. And that is a simple 3-step process. Number 1, I want to pay attention to the difficult situation. I want to identify it. I want to name it. I want to ask myself around that difficult emotion, what is causing me to feel that? And then I want to think about it a little bit in terms of why might I be feeling that? What experience has happened in the past, or what's going on right now that's causing me to feel that emotion more intensely than I maybe want to feel it. I was talking to one of my coaching students this morning about frustration, and super duper frustrated with a lot of different areas and aspects of his life right now. And I said, what you got to do is you have to pick one emotion, one thing you're frustrated with, and frustration is the emotion that he's working through on this particular thing today. And I said, you have to sit down with frustration, and number 1, think about what's leading up to you causing, and when are you noticing that you're frustrated? What's leading up to that? What else is going on? Who are you with? Are you bringing a whole bunch of things in from your past? And a key part of that is, what is your definition of frustrated? And this is a big one. I've got a lot of experience with this one, because when I was running my own businesses, I would catch myself being short and frustrated a lot during the day. And I realized that my definition of frustration, and I could get frustrated just like that, because I defined it as anytime something was different or going slower or different than I thought it should be or I expected it to be. Okay, talk about setting yourself up for failure. Every time something took longer, so if I had to be on the phone on hold longer or wait longer, or a delivery was late, or one of my employees was having a hard time with the task and slower than usual and taking longer on an assignment that I thought they should be taking, then I would be frustrated. Well, guess what? Expecting things to be different than they actually are was my definition of frustration. It's also a definition of insanity, right? Because things just are what they are. And if you accept them and then choose, do I need to make corrective actions, etc. But frustration, I wasn't making very good decisions coming from the point of frustration. I had to come at it from the point of, frustration was the problem. I needed to be focused on the solution. So the solution was maybe get them more help, get them more training, whatever the thing was that was frustrating me. But the choice of me defining frustration the way I had was actually being detrimental to me. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to define frustration differently. So I made up my own definition of frustration, and I made it virtually impossible for me to feel frustrated, right? And all I have to do nowadays is just remind myself to focus on what actually is in terms of a result or a situation, and then go from there. If something is taking longer, how can I help speed it up? Instead of judging, well, this should have been done already. I hope that makes sense. I'm not sure I'm explaining that particularly well, but if you've ever met me or ever worked with me, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So how do we deal with the difficult situations? Number 1, we identify the emotion, how we personally define that emotion, and is our definition realistic, or is it like mine, a little bit insane to think that things are going to be, expect that things are going to be different than they actually are just because they don't match what I think they should be. And guess what? I found out that me expecting things to be a certain way was usually not very realistic, because I march to the beat of a different drum than a lot of the people that work with me or that work in my organizations or that I interact with. We all have a different speed and a different pace that we do things at. So number 2, once you identify, and my action was to change my definition of frustration and make it hard to be frustrated. That was my action. So number 2 is take action. And number 3, ask yourself, how does it make you feel? How does being frustrated make you feel? Or how does being angry make you feel? Or how does being desperate or broken or whatever make you feel? And if it doesn't make you feel good, then we want to, number 1, look at the definition, change the definition, choose a different feeling, substitute a different emotion so that we don't feel bad. It is up to us to deal with difficult emotions. No one else can deal with our emotions for us. So we have to pick and choose and determine how we're going to do that and how we're going to respond to that. Basically, if the results we're getting in our life isn't what we want, then we need to do something different. And sometimes it's just as easy as redefining what different emotions mean to us and the process and how we are going to choose to experience them. Because guess what? We get to choose what they mean to us. I get to choose what makes me angry or what doesn't make me angry. I get to choose what frustrates me or doesn't frustrate me. I get to choose what makes me happy and joyful or feel loved based on how I define those emotions for me and how I want to experience them. So that's our topic for today, our emotional topic for today. But our action item, again, remember, is to think of 1 to 3 emotion-related goals that you want to achieve this year. That's step 1. We'll talk about the other steps each day of the rest of the month. And we'll use a similar process for other areas and aspects of our life, but I reserve the right to tweak it as we go along. All right, and I'd like your feedback so that we tweak it in everybody's best interests. All right, have an awesome day. Any questions, ask. Otherwise, I'll be with you tomorrow. Bye.